Yes, you read that correctly. I went to a Spongebob themed rave, and of course, I went as my favorite character, DoodleBob. Here's my final costume, and I'm gonna show you how to make it. Alright, so we're starting with the bottoms, and right now I'm just cutting off the pant legs and making these cropped jeans into shorts. Fun fact, I actually scored these white jeans from the Goodwill bins for under $1. Next, I'm going to roll up the pant legs just to hide the raw edge here. Next, I'm adding some newspaper inside of the shorts just to help with any bleeding that might occur. I am using acrylic paint, which is a bit thicker, so I'm not too worried about that. Next, I will be mixing fabric medium with acrylic white and black paint just so I can remove that crunchy texture and help the paint glide on better. Disregard this first brush, I actually didn't end up having to use it. I did end up using the second one the most and the last one for touch up. You want to have a cup of water with you handy to help loosen the brush bristles. Now I'm just mixing the black acrylic with the fabric medium here, and we're ready to paint. And if you do end up using paint as your medium here, make sure that your brush is fully saturated so you can get the most color payoff. And if you're not a painter, that's okay. There's other mediums of choice that can do a similar job. One of those being paint markers, which would, in my opinion, be easier and first time user friendly, or you can use a Sharpie if you only have that on hand. Use what you have. Sometimes it forces you to become more creative, but most importantly, you want to make sure you're still having fun. Although using paint was the more tedious choice out of the other options, I did end up enjoying the process quite a lot. It was pretty therapeutic, and I also had SpongeBob going on in the background. But if I had to do it again, I would probably use painter's tape to help with the lines a bit. It would probably be more efficient to use overall, but again, that's the perfectionist in me, and I think the mistakes give it way more character. Now we're going to use some white to touch up some of our mistakes. Little goes a long way. If you have a steadier hand than I do, you can completely remove this step. My method of choice is using small tiny strokes and then connecting those with my main line just to leave less room for error. After putting on that initial line, I like to go back and thicken up my line. That way it's a little bit more prominent. Okay, now you're gonna see me completely expose myself because I definitely lied. I did end up going in with this brush that you see on the screen right now. It's a smaller and finer detailing brush to help intensify and make straight lines. And for those of you wondering, this process did take about 4 to 5 hours. I could imagine this being faster with a Sharpie or a painting pen just because you have less paint transferring onto your fingers. Pro tip, learn from my mistakes and wash your hands often. Next up is the top, but first we gotta prep it with some newspaper. I will say this fabric, probably have to guess it was a rib knit material or some kind of stretch elastic, was a bit more annoying to work with. As you can see, my lines are not as sharp. That's because the rib knit has these vertical ridges that make it harder for the black to saturate in. So my advice if you're working with this type of material is to really saturate your brush and use patting motions. You can also use back and forth motions like this. I know what you're thinking, don't worry about that spot, we have a solution for it later. Yes, now onto the tie. This was less daunting than I thought it would be. I just took a piece of scrap fabric that I got from the pant leg that I cut off earlier, took an existing tie, traced it on with a Sharpie, and then cut it out. And you don't have to worry about the Sharpie mark showing because we're going to be flipping it inside out and we are going to be painting the edges black anyways. Now remember to cut away at least a ½ inch away from the actual line you made. We do not want to shrink the tie when we hot glue it together. Yes, I said hot glue, don't come after me. You can obviously use a sewing machine if you want this to be a more permanent thing, but hot glue will do just fine, trust me. And then I went ahead and flipped the tie inside out and ironed it flat. Next, you want to cut a small piece from the tie to make this tie knot thing. I don't know what this thing is called. Basically, you're going to fake this shape and hot glue it down. Next, you're going to take some of that scrap fabric you have left, cut a square piece, and cover the back of the tie just to make it more uniform and clean, plus somewhere to hook the safety pin onto. Now your tie is complete. Next, you're going to want to rinse, recycle, repeat these steps until you get a really cool outline on this tie. DoodleBob actually has these bubbles if you look closely at a reference image, and that's what I'm making right now. I know that these are all even size, but I actually went back and cut some a little smaller so it looked better. You'll see that in the final results later, and then I'm outlining it. And actually, you're going to use these same bubbles to cover up those stains I was talking about earlier. And of course, I had to pair my whole outfit with these thigh-high boots. But yeah, this is it. Here's the finished product. There's the safety pin I was talking about. And here are the bubbles. For those of you wondering how I attached those on, it's actually attached with fashion tape. And don't be stingy like me. Be generous with the fashion tape. Less is not more. You don't want the bubbles flapping out. Like these two bubbles, it's not a cute look. Oh yeah, and can't forget about this one right here. Here's the results from the back. And here's the poo noodle I was talking about in the previous slide. Hopefully you guys had enough time to pause and look at the mini tutorial. Otherwise, I can definitely do a separate video showing you guys how to make this simple prop here. And as I mentioned, this was a day old after the rave, so all the paint has basically rubbed off. This was a rushed project, so I would definitely do things differently and add more coats of paint and probably a sealant. But yeah, thanks for watching. Spoiler alert, I didn't end up using the gloves, I just forgot about them. But that's a nice touch if you want to do that for your costume. The total cost of this project costs around $7.25 if you don't count the top that I already had. Otherwise, it totals at $14. Thank you guys for sticking with me all the way to the end. This was a really amazing and fun video to make, and if you like these kind of videos, please consider subscribing and I'll get more out to you.